So I wanted to ask a time investment question. You had mentioned before about we all have lives, and so how much time do we invest in this kind of thing?
Yeah.
So I think that a piece of common author advice is if you're wondering what to do with your time, you never go wrong using it to work on your next book. And I think that's generally true. Although I'm kind of hearing a shift because I think if I had heard you speak as I have years ago, then the message would have been, if you only have one book, maybe wait until you have another book. Now I think I'm hearing more of a shift to, there's no harm in running ads against an early book because it can advise you, it can give you that market research insight that suggests maybe this is really cozy and not a police procedural, or maybe people aren't sympathizing with your character, whatever that might be. But I think there's also a point where you've got a bunch of books. Like I currently have 10 novels. By the end of this year, I should have 11 or 12. And I almost feel like maybe I should make 2025 my promotional year, not stop writing altogether because I think there are dangers there. But do you ever think that there's a time when you would advise an author to say, now it's time to shift your focus a little bit. Let's have a concerted chunk of time that is strictly going to be focused on learning and optimizing and using promotional tools like Amazon ads?
I think folks do this naturally. I think that people do kind of go into promotional mode, especially if they buy a course or they are trying out a new method. I think there can be benefits of it, but right now, and I got a little bit in trouble for this. This was exciting. So I was talking about on Sell More Book Show that this exact question, if you have, one book out, or how many books would you wait until you run ads? And I say one, because if you are planning to write a 10-book series and first book has no chance of selling once you've run the ads and you realize like maybe you didn't quite get the genre right, maybe you didn't get the tropes right, then, hey, the ads have actually pointed you in the direction of, well, maybe you could write something a little bit different and see how that goes. I got in trouble for it a little bit because someone listened to that post or listened to that episode and said, Brian is telling me that I should cancel my series if it didn't sell well on ads. And then that was posted in a public group, the Writing Gals, and a lot of people were like, that's terrible advice. And it's not exactly what I was saying, but it's not exactly the opposite of what I was saying either, because what are you going to get more out of? Are you going to get more out of writing and researching a series starter, running ads to it, determining, it's not where it needs to be, and then writing and researching a second series starter, and then maybe taking the lessons learned from that and writing a third series starter for a totally different series, maybe even a different subgenre? Or writing 3 books in one series and then running ads to it. Which do you get more out of? I wonder if you get more out of option A, because that writing and research process that usually we don't do until we finished a series, put it on the shelf, moved on to another series, is where the growth can happen to a certain extent. I remember I was writing a series and I was writing book 5. I was like, this is the best book I've ever written, and no one's ever going to find it because it's deep in a series that the book 1 isn't so good. And so to go back to the question of, is there a time where you focus on promotional methods or do you always just keep the writing going? I'm a big fan right now of you focus some time on the writing and research, and you can focus some time on promotion. But I think the big growths, the Richter scale 10x growths, those happen jumping from a series to a different series to a different series. Now, I did message the person and all these comments come in and I said, you don't have to quit a series. You don't have to give up a series. But there is nothing wrong with saying, I'm going to write another book 1 and I'll come back to book 2 of this later. You never have to kill a series. But I am very big right now, Maddie, on can I save an author 2 to 3 years of their lives? And this is kind of the theory I'm going on of, especially based on lots of authors I've seen who've had success, this might be the thing to concentrate on. And you might want to wait until you have the big hit where one of those series starters does seem to take off on its own. Then maybe you go into promotion mode, not necessarily when, you're like in a position where you'd need to double your sales to be happy. To me, that feels like, well, ads are going to bump what you have up 20 to 30% at most. If you're not happy with what 20 to 30% more would bring, then I wonder if you focus on that next series starter and go deeper into that writing to market genre research and then save the promotional time for later. Theoretical, I'll put that, forward. Philosophical, maybe. But I'm always trying to think of how can authors kind of level up. And this feels to me like maybe the direction they need to go in.
Well, I like that idea that you're not suggesting people trash their starter if it's not doing well in the ads, but that by the time you've tested your third starter and this is the one that catches on, then it's easier to step back and say, oh, you know what I did differently? I spent more time developing the character, and you know what I could do? I could go back into series 1 and I could write that second book, except this time, guess what? More character development or an interesting backstory or whatever that might be. And so the learnings that you can gain from what it was about that one that finally hit could be profitably applied to the earlier ones.
Right. That's, like I said, the theory, but I've seen too many authors have success with their third series or their fourth series or their fifth series. And I wonder, well, what if that didn't happen in year 6 of their career? What if it happened in year 2? And it just makes me wonder.